Hi everyone, Eric Nelson here once again, and thank you for tuning into my YouTube channel. For today, I am back with another book review of Gifts from the Dark, a Miscellany of Dread. Now, like my previous book reviews, this is another book that is actually a collection of short stories. And in case you haven't seen them, what I am going to do in this one, like the others, I'm just going to go by each of the short story and just give a brief summary. On the other hand, if it's a poem or a really short story, I'm just going to give you my point of view of it, because if I were to give you a brief description of the very brief story, I might as well just recite every line for line. And because all of them are so great, it's up to you, the audience, to read it for yourselves. So here are the authors of each of these stories. Now, some of them write more than one, others only write one. And the following authors are Angelika Rust, S.A. Shields, Chloe Hammond, J.R. Biery, Charlotte Stirling, James Warren McAllister, William Douglas Frank, Tina Rath, Rubianne Wood, Russell Cruse, T.M. Hogan, J. Cassidy, Donald B. Stevens, Tom Greenwood, Adam Oster, and Bradley Darewood. Now, in the first short story, Can You See Me?, we follow the protagonist, Angelika Cooney, who works in internet services, and she feels like she's constantly being stalked by someone. Now, one of the clues that supports her suspicion are paper roses being left at her workplace, as well as her home, or basically anywhere that she has been. And then she starts to feel real violated when the stalker poses as a customer at her work through the phone. Now, there are some hints of the stalker being created by her work friends as a practical joke. So, is the stalker real or not? Now, one of the things I really like about this story is how it has two different points of view. One of them is Angelika's, and the other one is the stalker's. So, now in the next one, in the Price of Love, we are reminded that all things have a price, including love. And we are also reminded of the pain one feels when the love actually fails. In Vicious People, Alma and Harmon are an elderly couple, and Harmon was a police officer, but then he had to retire after a series of strokes. But will those strokes stand in his way of defending himself and his wife? In Boo, you can be the judge of this story and categorize it as either a ghost story or as a romance. In the last one, the title character talks about his last moment on Earth. His last moment is actually trying to fight off the people in metal suits. Now, when the title character dies, it's shameful because we find out who the villain is. But believe me, you'll understand when you read it. Now, in Whispers of Lavender, try to answer this question. Is this story about God or a God? In The Place of the Lost, I just want to say a word of warning. You really have to pay attention while reading, because if you don't, you your imagination will be in a lost place if you don't pay attention to every single word of the place of the lost. You'll be in a lost place. I just had to repeat that. No real pun intended, but you know. Now, in the story Trapped, Joe Stanley, who lives in a nursing home, reminds us that making people laugh is not only a good talent, but can also make a world of difference to someone. Now, really think about that. A world of difference to someone by just simply making people laugh. Now, once again, once you read this story, you'll understand what I mean. Now, in The Wrong Girl, we follow a woman who sees the inside of an airport as a magical place, something like Disney World almost. Now, this of course draws attention to the airport security, and with airports already being skittish over the littlest things, you can probably guess what will happen. But will you be right or wrong about The Wrong Girl? Mr. Bark is a story that parents of naughty children will love because it will teach them an important life lesson. They won't just be hoping it will, they know it will. In Phantom Dollhouse, we can see a case of sisterly love that goes into a creepy state. In The Night Bus, we follow a character that's sort of like a more stable version of the character Travis Bickle. He rides the night bus every night and describes literally everything about the bus and the people on it, from the odor of the bus to kissing couples on it as well. Now, when he sleeps, he dreams about torturing people on the bus. Now, the main character then notices that a couple is on the bus every time that he's on the bus. Now, will this lead to something like the climax of a Taxi Driver or something far more violent? In Flight, a woman and her newborn daughter are on the run from her husband and his family. Although she claims to have spent all the money that her husband had and basically put them into the poorhouse, she still thinks that she will be a better parent to her daughter than her husband. But will she get a chance to prove it to him and his family? In Walking Through the Darkness, Rebecca Davis is pregnant, but her husband Ben has stage 4 brain cancer. Now, to add more heartache and emotional pain to this, Rebecca already suffered 2 miscarriages before her husband's cancer diagnosis. And he does get treatment, but because this is stage 4 breast cancer, it really doesn't look good. Now the treatment does change his moods and his character, but will it save his life? Also, someone named Sorrel is finally able to travel on her own, but is kidnapped by a demon. Now, the demon offers her a never-ending bargain. He will spare her life if she continues to find others in their prime for him to take over. In 50 years, however, he will then come for her. So will these 2 stories that seem very different come together and make a similar climax? In Wrath of a Limitless God, we see that even God himself can be damned. In Never Again, Joe's mother, Isis, not the terrorist group, but that's really all I know how to pronounce it, which is Isis, leaves her daughter in her new apartment after moving in. Before she leaves, she hangs a portrait of a raven. She says that ravens are not the typical evil bird that lives in darkness. She proclaims them to be birds who will guide people through darkness and clean up evil. After she leaves, Joe starts to feel the presence of him and starts to search throughout the apartment as well as her hallway. As she becomes more nervous, she starts to see visions of him and hears his voice in her head. This is where the story starts to play out like another Edgar Allan Poe classic, the Telltale Heart. All the while, the portrait of the Raven looks in on her. In A Storm Blows Through Polecat County, Jackson Mallory is a hunter who has to kill his best hunting dog because of rabies. Now, he doesn't trust vaccines since it was recommended by city slicker vets. When he sees his dog really suffering from the rabies, he has to make a decision on whether or not to kill him. In We're Not in Kansas, we learn that sometimes the nightmare isn't over after we wake up. In Cryo, we learn that the cryo is where you have no sense of time, meaning that you can be frozen for the shortest period of time or the longest and you still wouldn't know the difference. Or maybe you would if you saw someone or something else inhabiting the planet. In Agony of Defeat, we are reminded that when playing a sport, it's always best to just keep your mind off of winning and just have fun. On the other hand, you might be playing for something much more than just a trophy or money. Well, maybe. In Sea of Contradictions, I can't say anything else except read it. Sorry. But you will love it. Now, in Hippopotamus Quadrille of Phobia, I'm sorry, that's the best of how I can pronounce it. But in that story, we learn or we are reminded that if your job is literally taking over your life, and I mean 100% of it, just quit. It doesn't matter if there are no other jobs out there, and besides, if it's literally taking over your life, it's not like you're going to use the money that you are earning anyway because you are constantly working. It's that simple. In Late, we are reminded that if someone is late to anything, do not spaz, no matter what it is. In the beginning of the end, John is having a bad dream, or he's having many bad dreams, where a girl named Daisy is in them. Someone that he doesn't know in real life until one day he meets her in real life, and her physical appearances as well as her voice are the same. So where will it lead to? In The Killer 10, Mike wants to take the I-10 to visit his high-maintenance girlfriend. Now, his friend warns him about the serial killer who hides out in the rest stops and restaurants on the I-10 to stalk and kill people. Now, Mike is willing to take that risk since he barely sees his girlfriend and that the I-10 will make the trip a lot shorter. But will he get to his girl alive? And if he makes it through the I-10, will she even be there waiting for him? So you can get this book anywhere, and I hope to see you all at the bookstore or the iBookstore.